This is Chapter 11, The Search. "I have to go out into the hotel," Ralph informed his relatives. "I've got to help the boy." "Oh, no, not out into the hotel," cried Ralph's mother. "Not while the housekeeper is looking for mice. If you're seen, we'll be in danger." "I'll be back before dawn," said Ralph staunchly. "I must go. Don't try to stop me." "See here, my boy, aren't you being a bit dramatic?" asked Uncle Lester. "Whatever do you have to go out into the hotel for?" "To pilfer a pill," said Ralph, "an aspirin tablet." His answer was dramatic enough even for Uncle Lester. His entire family stared at him in disbelief. Not an aspirin? Not after his own father had been poisoned by one of the dread tablets. "An aspirin?" Ralph's mother gasped. "No, Ralph, not that. Anything but that." "It is the only way." Ralph stood tall and brave. "The boy has a fever, and he needs an aspirin. I'm going to find him one." "Oh, Ralph!" His mother hid her face in her paws. "But, Ralph," quivered Aunt Sissy, "remember your father. You can't carry an aspirin in your cheek pouches. It would poison you. How could you get one here?" "I'll find a way." Ralph was outwardly steadfast in his determination, but inside he wondered how he would manage to get an aspirin into room 215 if he didn't find one. Roll it, perhaps? "Ralph, stay here," pleaded his mother. "You're too young. Let your Uncle Lester go." "Well, now, let's talk this over," said Uncle Lester. "I'm not too young, and I haven't a moment to lose." Ralph, who was really frightened by what he was about to do, also enjoyed the drama of the moment. "Goodbye. I shall return before dawn." "Ralph, promise me you'll be careful," pleaded his mother. "Promise me you won't climb into suitcases like your Aunt Adrian." Ralph's Aunt Adrian, who liked nice things, had climbed into a suitcase to examine a nylon stocking. Someone had closed the suitcase, and Aunt Adrian had never been seen again. It was hoped she had been carried away to a life of luxury. "Promise me, Ralph," cried his mother, but her son was already on his way out the knothole. Ralph scurried across the carpet of room 215, flattened himself, and squeezed under the door. Once out in the hall, his courage ebbed. An aspirin tablet seemed like a very small thing to find in such a vast place. It would be easier to find the motorcycle. No, thought Ralph, I must not even think about the motorcycle. Ralph began to feel pretty small himself, much smaller than he had felt during his show of bravery back in the mouse nest. Down in the lobby, a clock struck 1. There was not a moment to lose. He ran to the next room, squeezed under the door, and searched under the beds and the dresser while the two guests slept soundly. All he found was a bobby pin. He skipped room 211 because his enemy, the little terrier, was still there, and ran on to room 209. A hurried search, frightening because of the loud and uneven snores that came from one of the beds, revealed nothing but a few pretzel crumbs, which Ralph did not have time to eat. On and on ran Ralph, down the hall, under the doors, around under beds and dressers. There was not a single aspirin tablet to be found. In one of the rooms he did see a penny that had rolled under a luggage rack, and remembered his mother's wish to leave a tip for room service. But tonight he had no time for pennies. He must press on and find an aspirin. A small doubt began to creep into Ralph's thoughts as he ran down the hall to the last room on the second floor. Maybe there was no aspirin. Maybe he was risking his life and the lives of his family for nothing. But Ralph pushed the thought aside. He would not let himself become discouraged. If there was no aspirin on the second floor, there had to be one someplace on the ground floor. Tonight he was willing to brave the stairs to find it. He flattened himself and squeezed under the last door on the second floor. There was nothing under each of the beds but the things Keith called dust mites. There was no sound but the rattle of the windows in the wind. Ralph started across the carpet toward the dresser, when suddenly a light from the bedside table blinded him. He stopped, rooted to the carpet by fear, even though it was not likely that anyone was going to cut off his tail with a carving knife. He heard someone slip out of bed and utter a sound halfway between a squeal and a scream. Before Ralph knew what was happening, an ordinary drinking glass had been clapped down over him, and there he stood in a glass trap. But then his eyes were adjusted to the light, and he found himself facing a pair of bare feet. Looking up, he saw that the feet belonged to a young woman in a pink nightgown.